Mr. Vidal, we're placing you under arrest, mail and package theft, receiving stolen property.
This isn't happening right now. I'm watching myself standing here like it's somebody else looking at all of it.
This is Marcus Vidal, a delivery driver who told the same lie 4,200 times. Once is a mistake. Vidal turned it into a business, and the evidence is sitting in a storage unit with everyone's name on it.
Marcus, look at me. 4,200 packages.
He would not talk his way out of this one. Within 72 hours, federal investigators would cut the padlock on a climate-controlled storage unit off Cactus Wren Boulevard and find it packed floor to ceiling with parcels. Every single one of them was logged in the Verano Courier system as delivered. 4,200 packages, 2 years of quiet diversion, $310,000 in restitution, and a jury verdict that would take less than an afternoon. For 4 years, Marcus Vidal ran one of the busiest suburban routes in the Sandhurst Valley. For 2 of those years, he had been running a second business on top of it. His employer never noticed, his customers never verified, and the little green checkmark on their phones did all the lying for him. Quick question: how many delivery notifications have pinged your phone this month claiming a package was left at your door? Did you actually walk out and confirm it, or did you just trust the status update and go about your day? Sound off in the comments. I want to see your number. And if you're new here, subscribe. We cover the cases mainstream media walks right past every single week. Marcus Ernesto Vidal was born in Nogales, Arizona in the spring of 1992, the oldest of 3 children in a working-class Mexican-American family. His father, Ernesto, had come up from Sonora as a teenager and spent his adult life under the hoods of other people's cars. His mother, Rosalinda, ran a small tortilleria out of the front of their rented house, selling stacks of fresh corn tortillas to the neighborhood before dawn. When Marcus was 8, the family moved north to Sandhurst, a fast-growing suburb on the western edge of the Phoenix metro. Ernesto bought a quarter share of a 2-bay auto shop off Grand Avenue. The family rented, then eventually bought, a small stucco house with a rock front yard and a mesquite tree that never quite gave enough shade. Marcus was not an especially strong student, but he had his father's hands. By the time he was 12, he could change a serpentine belt without looking at the manual. By 14, he was pulling weekend shifts at the shop for cash, running parts and rotating tires while the older mechanics handled the difficult jobs. He learned early that you get paid for what you finish, not what you start. Sandhurst High School graduated him in 2010 with a solid but unremarkable transcript, a mechanical drawing certificate, and a used silver Honda Civic that he had rebuilt himself from a salvage title wreck. His mother wanted him to go to community college. Marcus took a job at a Round Table Pizza on Bell Road instead, delivering pies for tips. He worked pizza delivery for 2 years. He learned the geography of Sandhurst the way only a delivery driver learns a town, not by streets, but by porches, by dogs, by which houses tip, and which houses call to complain about a cold meat lovers when the driver is 15 minutes ahead of schedule. He learned that a house with an unraked yard and a broken storm door will still order a too large cheese and pay in loose bills. He learned that the affluent subdivisions off Highway 74 tip worst. In 2012, at 20, Marcus took a step up. Right Way Logistics, a regional sort center contractor, was hiring for its overnight package handling shift at a warehouse just off the I-17. The pay was $12.85 an hour to start, plus a shift differential of $1 an hour for the 11 to 7 schedule. He unloaded trailers, scanned parcels, and pushed cages of sorted boxes down conveyors under sodium lights until sunrise. He worked that warehouse for almost 4 years. He learned how a package flows through a sort network. He learned what a delivered scan looks like on the back end. He learned that the entire logistics industry runs on trust in the handheld device, and that the device does not lie because it is not asked hard questions. In the summer of 2016, Verano Courier, a mid-sized last-mile carrier subcontracting for 2 of the largest online retailers in the country, posted a hiring notice for independent contract drivers in the Sandhurst area. The starting rate was $18.75 an hour, plus a small per-stop bonus after the daily threshold. Marcus applied on a Thursday. He was in a Verano-branded van by the following Wednesday. For the next 4 years, his evaluations were consistently strong. His supervisors described him as reliable, conscientious, and one of the most efficient drivers on the Western Territory. He was assigned Route 47B, a suburban ribbon that wound through Sun Mesa, Cactus Point, and the newer master-planned communities off Grand Avenue. 240 stops on a heavy day. He hit his time windows. He almost never missed. In 2019, he married Camila Reyes, a dental hygienist he had been dating since his warehouse years. They rented a small apartment near Grand Avenue for 2 years. Then in 2021, they bought a modest 3-bedroom ranch on a cul-de-sac off West Peoria Avenue. The mortgage was 30 years at a rate that felt reasonable in 2021 and much less reasonable a year later. Property taxes climbed. The Homeowners Association levied a special assessment for a new perimeter wall. Camila's hours got cut when the dental office reorganized. On paper, the Vidals were middle class. In their checking account, they were tight. To colleagues at the Sandhurst depot, none of that was visible. Marcus showed up before his 5:45 a.m. start time. He kept his van clean. He was polite to dispatch. He was, by every measurable metric, exactly the kind of driver the company had built its brand on. Verano Courier moved, at the time of the events described in this case, roughly 140,000 parcels a day out of its Phoenix area regional hub. Of those, approximately 6,000 a day flowed through the Sandhurst depot, where Marcus reported for work. That depot dispatched between 40 and 48 drivers on any given shift, each assigned a defined territory and a truck loaded to their route in a specific delivery sequence. The centerpiece of the operation was the handheld scanner. Verano's model, an industrial ruggedized device the drivers called the Brick, did everything. It generated the day's route in optimal sequence. It confirmed the driver's identity at each stop. It updated the customer's tracking notification. It timestamped, geotagged, and photographed the delivery. And, most importantly for this story, it was the single point at which a package changed status from on truck to delivered. A parcel scanned as delivered was, within the Verano system, functionally complete. It generated an automated notification to the customer. It closed the loop with the shipping retailer. It cleared the driver's route sheet. And, absent a specific complaint from that specific customer, it was almost never re-examined. The company's own loss prevention audits ran on statistical sampling, not stop-by-stop verification. A driver who scanned 500 deliveries in a day and had, say, 12 customers call to say a package never arrived would raise no immediate alarm. 12 out of 500 sat inside every acceptable margin. The trust here was not principally between Verano and its drivers. The trust was between the customer and the little icon on the screen. The green checkmark that appears in an app or a text message and says, in effect, your package is at your door. That icon does not verify. It reports what the driver has told it. It cannot see the porch, cannot see the doormat, cannot see whether the parcel actually exists at the address on the label. It sees only what the scanner sends. That single system design decision, trust in the driver's scan, verified only after a customer complaint, was not a flaw introduced by carelessness. It was a feature of the modern logistics economy. Package volumes had exploded since 2015. Retailers demanded next-day and same-day fulfillment. Carriers demanded speed from drivers. Speed was incompatible with per-stop verification. The system moved forward on a pact. The driver would scan honestly, the customer would trust the scan, and the retailer would trust the customer to complain if something went wrong. Marcus Vidal understood that pact better than most, because he had spent 4 years inside a sort center before he ever climbed into a delivery van. He knew what a scan was and what it was not. He knew that delivered was at the end of the day a claim. And he knew that in a company handling 6,000 parcels a day out of a single depot, no one had the time or the manpower to check the claim against the world. The first package Marcus diverted, according to what he would later admit to investigators, was almost incidental. Sometime in the late spring of 2023, the exact date was never established because Verano's records for that period could not confirm a specific starting point. A customer on his route was not home to receive a parcel that clearly contained a valuable set of noise-canceling headphones. The customer had left instructions in the app to leave the package at the door, regardless of value. Marcus scanned the parcel as delivered, took a photograph of an empty porch, and put the box back in the van. Nothing happened. The customer did not call. The retailer did not follow up. Verano's loss prevention team did not open a case. The package sat in the corner of the van until the end of the shift, and then it went home with Marcus in the passenger footwell. He listed the headphones on a large online marketplace 3 days later, under an alias account he had set up during his warehouse years for an unrelated hobby. They sold within an hour. He printed the shipping label at home on the family's inkjet printer, dropped the parcel off at a shipping counter across town, and received $147 in his associated payment account. The buyer left 5 stars. The transaction closed. That was where an ordinary lapse ends. What Marcus Vidal did next was decide to run the play again. The second package, according to the evidence recovered later, came the following week. A pair of premium running shoes, a brand he recognized from his own online browsing, addressed to a house that was consistently unattended on his afternoon deliveries. Same scan, same photograph, same quiet trip home in the footwell, same listing, sold in 90 minutes. By the end of that first summer, Marcus had rented a climate-controlled storage unit, Unit 214B at Cactus Wren Self-Storage, a facility off the frontage road on the west side of Sandhurst. He paid in cash for the first 3 months and then set up an auto-pay from a bank account he had opened in his mother's maiden name. He told his wife the unit was for the auto shop tools his father had been storing at their house. The method matured quickly. He identified categories that moved fastest online: sealed electronics under $1,000, name-brand athletic shoes, designer sunglasses, small kitchen appliances from premium brands, and anything from a short list of streetwear labels. He learned to feel a box for its shape. He learned which retailers packed their higher-value goods in generic brown cardboard specifically to avoid porch theft. He learned to read the shipping labels for weight and dimensions. His system for the storage unit was disciplined. He would pull select parcels during his route, mark them delivered, place them in an unlabeled duffel or a large plastic tote in the van's cargo area, and then swing by Cactus Wren on his way back to the depot at end of shift. The facility had a keypad entry and an interior camera that pointed only at the main corridor. Unit 214B was 3 doors in from the corner, and the camera did not see the door itself. He would offload the day's take, roll the metal door down, click the padlock, and go home. At home, on the family's HP inkjet printer, he printed marketplace shipping labels. He shipped from 3 different drop-off locations to avoid pattern recognition. He kept a spreadsheet on a laptop he stored in the storage unit, not the house, tracking every item by category, sale price, buyer state, and running profit. The spreadsheet had a column labeled Unit Inventory and another labeled Monthly Net. The monthly net numbers grew. By the end of 2023, roughly 8 months in, Marcus was diverting between 5 and 12 parcels a day, 3 or 4 days a week. His weekly cash flow from the marketplace listings ran between $1,200 and $2,200, deposited to a personal account he used only for this purpose. He and Camilla paid off her small car loan. He replaced their leaking roof. He upgraded his own personal vehicle to a used but nearly new Toyota Tacoma. He almost never diverted parcels from the customers he had come to know by name. The retired couples in the older neighborhoods, the young family in the corner house on Saguaro Bloom Lane, the widow on Route 47B who left him bottled water on the porch every hot afternoon. Those parcels always arrived. The diversions came from the master plan developments where the houses looked identical and no one waved from the driveway. The victims were, by design, strangers. He was also careful about spacing. Never more than 1 theft from any single address in a 2-month window. never more than 3 from the same street in a month. He was reading his own audit exposure, the same way his loss prevention office would eventually read it, and he was staying a step ahead of the statistical sampling. The scheme ran, undetected, for another full year. By late 2024, Unit 214B held an estimated 2,700 parcels at any given time. Marcus was moving through the inventory as fast as he could list it, but the intake was outrunning the outflow. He had begun to run a second, informal subsystem. Bulk lots of lower value items sold to a small ring of reseller accounts on a secondary platform, cash on pickup at a coffee shop parking lot in South Phoenix. The buyers there did not ask questions, neither did he. The catalyst came in November of 2024. A subdivision on the north end of his route, Vista del Sol, roughly 280 homes built between 2018 and 2021, began generating an unusual concentration of missing package complaints to Verano's customer service line. In a single 3-week window, 17 separate customers in that zip code reported that packages marked delivered had never arrived. The complaints named specific tracking numbers, specific dates, specific times. The reports were detailed enough to trigger a case file. The Verano Loss Prevention Office in Phoenix opened case 2024-1147 on a Tuesday morning. The analyst assigned to it was a former United States Postal Inspection Service investigator named Dana Whitcomb. She had been with Verano's LP team for 6 years. She began by pulling the 17 tracking numbers and mapping them to the drivers who had scanned them delivered. All 17 had been scanned by the same driver. Route 47B, contractor number Verano Sandhurst, 1183. Marcus E. Vidal. Whitcomb did not act immediately. She pulled the prior 6 months of complaint data across Vidal's route and found a pattern the initial sampling had missed. Elevated but not overtly anomalous complaint rates, distributed across neighborhoods rather than clustered, and disproportionately concentrated on parcels containing sealed electronics, athletic footwear, and small item luxury goods. The pattern, once she was looking for it, was unmistakable. It was also careful. The complaint volumes were exactly at the edge of what routine audits would flag. Over the next 6 weeks, Whitcomb quietly built a case. She pulled Vidal's scanner logs, cross-referenced GPS traces to the delivery photographs, and identified 38 parcels where the scanner reported a delivered, left at door status at a specific address. But the photograph attached to the scan showed either the wrong porch, an unusual angle, or a doorway that did not match the customer's home. The wrong porch photos were the hinge. An honest driver made mistakes. An honest driver did not make the same category of mistake 38 times. At the same time, she requested, through Verano's legal department, subpoena support from the United States Postal Inspection Service. Package theft that crossed state lines through subsequent online resale fell squarely into federal jurisdiction. USPIS assigned Inspector Ramon Delacroix to the file. Delacroix opened a parallel federal investigation and began looking, quietly, at where Marcus Vidal's truck went between his last scanned delivery and his return to the depot. The GPS traces showed a consistent pattern. Almost every workday, between the last delivery and the depot check-in, the Verano van made an unscheduled stop of 8 to 14 minutes at the same address off the frontage road on the west side of Sandhurst. That address was Cactus Wren Self-Storage. We're about to walk into the storage unit. Before we do, if you've made it this far, subscribe, hit the bell. This channel breaks down exactly how the modern convenience economy gets gamed by the one person inside the system, and the sentencing in this one hits harder than you would expect. Keep watching. On January 14, 2025, Inspector Delacroix and 2 USPIS agents, accompanied by Detective Rene Aguirre of the Sandhurst Police Department's Property Crimes Unit, executed a federal search warrant on Unit 214B at Cactus Wren Self-Storage. The manager unlocked the outer gate at 8:07 a.m. Delacroix cut the padlock with a set of bolt cutters at 8:11 a.m. When the metal roll-up door came up, the entire inside of the unit, a 10 by 20 space with a 10-foot ceiling, was packed with cardboard parcels. stacked to the ceiling along the back wall, stacked to shoulder height along both side walls. A narrow center aisle wide enough for one person to walk sideways. Every parcel still bore the original recipient's shipping label. Every label matched to a customer served by Verano Courier. Every one of those customers, according to the Verano system, had been sent a delivery notification. Every single one of those notifications was a lie. The agents did not touch the parcels for the first 2 hours. They photographed the entire unit from the doorway. They diagrammed the stack pattern. They numbered the tote bins along the center aisle. Then they began, methodically, to count. The final tally, completed over the next 9 days at an evidence processing facility in Phoenix, was 4,211 parcels. The estimated retail value of the contents was determined by the retailers themselves as the parcels were returned to the shipping chain. The number came to approximately $368,000 in intended recipient value, of which Verano and the affected retailers would ultimately be required to make good. Inside a plastic file box on a metal shelf in the back of the unit, Detective Aguirre recovered a laptop, a small external hard drive, and a bound spiral notebook. The notebook contained monthly totals in Marcus Vidal's handwriting for 22 consecutive months. Each month included a line for listed, a line for sold, and a line for carry. The final month before the search read, in his own hand, listed 218, sold 191, carry 27, net 8,940. The laptop, once processed, contained the master spreadsheet Marcus had maintained since his second month of diversions. It included every parcel he had taken, categorized by product type, listed price, sold price, buyer state, and shipping method. The spreadsheet's last modified date was 3 days before the search. The digital trail expanded from there. Inspector Delacroix's team traced marketplace accounts under 3 separate aliases back to devices in the Vidal household. Payment accounts routed proceeds to a bank account opened in Rosalinda Vidal's maiden name, which Marcus controlled through a linked debit card. Text messages recovered from Marcus's personal phone showed him negotiating bulk lots with 2 Phoenix-based resellers. The exchanges were brief and clinical. Buyer, October 3rd, 2024. You got any Sony headphones this week? Marcus, October 3rd, 2024. Have 6 sealed, WH 1000XM5, 180 each cash for the lot. Buyer, I'll take them. Sunday same spot? Marcus, yeah, 2 p.m. Another exchange from November of 2024 referenced the same subdivision that would soon trigger the complaint cluster. Buyer, November 11th, 2024. Any Jordans this month? Marcus, November 11th, 2024. Slow, got 2 pair 4s and a pair of 11s. Vista del Sol is running hot right now, need to cool that zip for a week. That message, standing alone, would have hanged him in front of a jury. It admitted in his own words that he was managing his theft geography around detection risk. Delacroix printed it and put it in the case binder. By the end of February 2025, the federal indictment was ready. It named Marcus Ernesto Vidal on 12 counts. 2 counts of mail and package theft under 18 U.S.C. 1708. 4 counts of wire fraud tied to the online resale transactions under 18 U.S.C. 1343. 4 counts of interstate transportation of stolen property, and 2 counts of receiving stolen property. The grand jury returned the indictment on February 27, 2025. The arrest was executed on the morning of March 4, 2025. Marcus had reported to the Sandhurst depot at 5:42 a.m., 3 minutes before his scheduled start. He clocked in, retrieved his scanner from the charging bank, and pulled his route sheet. He was midway through loading his van in the concrete bay when Inspector Delacroix, Detective Aguirre, and 2 additional agents entered the depot yard through the driver's gate. Delacroix approached the van directly. Aguirre positioned herself between the driver's side door and the yard exit. The other 2 agents held the mouth of the loading bay. Marcus was holding a stack of small parcels against his chest when the inspector called his name. His hands did not shake. His face did not immediately change. He set the parcels down on the wheel well of the van, one at a time, before he turned around. "Marcus Vidal," Delacroix said. He was already holding the warrant folded in one hand and his credentials in the other. "Yeah, that's me." "Inspector Ramon Delacroix, United States Postal Inspection Service. We have a federal warrant for your arrest. Please put your hands where I can see them." Marcus looked at the warrant. He looked at Aguirre. He looked at the two agents at the mouth of the bay. "Is this about the storage unit?" he said. Delacroix did not answer immediately. He said, "Mr. Vidal, put your hands on top of the van, please." Marcus put his hands on the roof of the van. "Is this about the storage unit?" he said again. "Mr. Vidal, we can talk about that at the station. Right now I need you to keep your hands where they are and not move." "I want a lawyer," Marcus said. His voice was flat. He did not sound afraid. He sounded like a man who had already run the calculation and understood exactly what number was on the other side of it. Aguirre placed the handcuffs. Marcus said nothing else during the walk from the loading bay to the unmarked SUV parked outside the driver's gate. He looked once, briefly, at the row of other drivers loading their vans in the adjacent bays. 3 of them had stopped working. One of them, a driver named Terrell, who had been with Verano longer than Marcus, took off his ball cap and held it against his chest, which was not an intentional gesture, but read that way from the distance. The depot manager came out of the small office at the far end of the yard as Marcus was being placed in the back of the SUV. He watched. He did not approach. Later that afternoon, he would send an internal email to the Phoenix hub informing them that Route 47B was down a driver and requesting a temporary reassignment. Marcus Vidal did not speak to any Verano employee again. The federal case was assigned to Judge Miriam Halloran of the United States District Court for the District of Arizona. Marcus's defense attorney, a court-appointed public defender named Owen Krasnick, entered a not guilty plea at the arraignment on March 10, 2025. Bond was set at $75,000, secured by the equity in the West Peoria Avenue house. Marcus was released the same afternoon. Krasnick filed motions to suppress the storage unit evidence on Fourth Amendment grounds, arguing that the affidavit supporting the search warrant had relied too heavily on internal Verano loss prevention data that had not been independently verified. Judge Halloran denied the motions in a written order dated April 22, 2025, finding that the GPS traces on the company-owned van, the pattern of 38 wrong porch photographs, and the statistical anomaly in complaint clustering all independently supported probable cause. The trial began on June 3, 2025, and ran for 4 court days. The government called 11 witnesses. Inspector Delacroix testified for most of the second day. Dana Whitcomb, the Verano loss prevention analyst, walked the jury through the scanner logs and the wrong porch photographs. A digital forensics examiner from the FBI's Phoenix field office testified about the master spreadsheet recovered from the laptop. 3 affected customers testified in person about the specific parcels they had not received. One of them, a woman named Angela Whitfield, described a birthday gift she had ordered for her son's 12th birthday that had never arrived, and that she had eventually replaced at her own expense while her son believed for a full week that he had done something to make his mother forget him. Whitfield's testimony took less than 4 minutes on direct examination. It was the piece of the trial that the local Sandhurst paper would quote in its coverage the following week. "He knew that box was for a child," she told the jury. "He didn't care. He needed the money more than my son needed a birthday. That's the choice he made. 4,200 times." The defense called 2 witnesses. Marcus's wife, Camila, testified briefly about the family's financial pressures during the relevant period, describing her reduced hours at the dental office and the special assessment from the Homeowners Association. Marcus's father, Ernesto, testified about his son's character, in a mix of English and Spanish, through a court interpreter. He said, at one point, that his son had been raised to work honest hours and that he did not recognize the man described in the government's evidence. He said it, and then he stopped, And then he sat with his hands in his lap and looked at the floor of the witness box for a long moment before Krasnick asked him if he needed a break. Ernesto said no. Marcus did not testify in his own defense. The jury returned its verdict on the afternoon of June 12, 2025, after 3 hours and 40 minutes of deliberation. Guilty on all 12 counts. Sentencing was set for August 21st, 2025. The pre-sentence report calculated an advisory range of 46 to 57 months based on the loss amount and the sophistication enhancement. Krasnick argued for a downward variance based on Marcus's lack of prior criminal history, his family responsibilities, and what the defense characterized as a non-violent property offense. Judge Halloran was not persuaded. Her sentencing statement, delivered from the bench, ran nearly 7 minutes. Mr. Vidal, you have described this offense, through your counsel, as a non-violent property crime. In one sense, that is technically accurate. In every sense, that matters. It is not. You held a position of trust with every household on your route. You held the same position of trust with the retailers who put their goods in your van. And you held it with a corporate system that had decided, correctly or incorrectly, that its drivers were worth trusting. You broke every one of those trusts, deliberately, 4,211 times. You kept a spreadsheet. You watched your detection risk. You moved your inventory around the neighborhoods that were paying attention. This was not desperation. This was a business, and you ran it with discipline. She paused. She looked at Marcus over her reading glasses. Every notification that pinged one of your customers' phones was a small, deliberate lie. You told that lie 4,211 times. This court will now speak, one time, as loudly as it can. She sentenced Marcus Ernesto Vidal to 48 months in federal prison, 3 years of supervised release, and $310,000 in restitution jointly and severally with any related civil recovery. She recommended designation to FCI Safford, a low-security facility in southeastern Arizona, so he could remain within reasonable visiting distance of his family. She permanently barred him, as a condition of supervised release, from holding any employment or contractor position that involved custody of another party's mail or parcels. She also barred him from opening or maintaining any account on the online marketplace platforms he had used to run his resale operation. He surrendered to FCI Safford on October 6, 2025. His projected release date is April of 2029. Verano Courier, in the months following the trial, announced a series of policy revisions to its Phoenix regional operations. Drivers were required, effective September 1, 2025, to capture 2 delivery photographs from 2 different angles, both of which had to include a portion of the recipient's front door with the house number visible. Route audits shifted from statistical sampling to weighted spot checks on high-value parcels. A new loss prevention analyst was assigned to the Sandhurst depot. The house on West Peoria Avenue went on the market in November of 2025 to satisfy a portion of the restitution order. Camila Vidal moved back in with her parents. The Toyota Tacoma was sold at auction. The tools at Ernesto's auto shop, the ones Marcus had told his wife were being stored in Unit 214B, had never actually left the shop. Every one of the 4,211 parcels was, over the 6 months following the search, returned to its retailer or its intended recipient. The birthday gift Angela Whitfield had ordered for her son arrived at her front door in the second week of March 2025, 3 months late. She kept it in the closet and did not give it to him. He was 13 by then and had asked for something else. This case was quiet. It didn't scream. It just told a very small lie 4,211 times, and the system waved every one of them through. But the case on the right-hand side of your screen? That one screams from the first second. Click it now.